saw a lot of familiar faces here. Yeah, thank you for making me here. So this talk is supposed to walk you through some of my old works, and then give you an idea of the kind of work I do, and let us familiarize with each other's genre, and hopefully we can have some collaboration in the future, as many of you are based in the Bay Area. So I will be based in the Bay Area long term, so I'm looking forward to establish some connections and hopefully spark some collaborations in the future. Yeah, so let's get started. So I design these kind of experiences and products that bridges between digital and physical. They didn't come to this state by design. Actually, they come to this kind of state out of spontaneity. I studied industrial design in college, so purely physical product design. So this is kind of my trajectory from my college to a couple of IT companies to an innovative design studio and to the GSD and the Media Lab and then to MasterCard and currently at Amazon. So if you look at my design journey, I started with Bachelor of Engineering focused on industrial design, so designing a lot of physical products. But the later half of that program was kind of naturally transitioned to a user experience design program, because by that time, the mobile industry was really booming in China. It's around 2010 to 2013, and a lot of my classmates and teachers started learning user experience design by themselves. So they integrated that into the curriculum, and then very naturally, I found a job as a user experience designer after graduation and started freelancing, designing for small businesses and sometimes big companies, or on all sorts of digital solutions, including their apps, their branding, and everything you can imagine for a company. So I would say my college education and the first couple years after college as a professional designer kind of paved the way for this career that combines industrial design, physical product design, as well as user experience design. But it was not until end of 2015 that I had the opportunity to invent or design some more innovative or more regional design solutions that are really kind of at the intersection of digital and physical, which some of those projects will cover in today's talk. And then 2 years later, 2017 to 2019, I came to the GSD to study my master's program. I had this focus on AR, VR, immersive experience design, and some computational design. I would say the 2 years at the GSD was not fully satisfactory, as many of you might know. The GSD is very focusing on architecture, doesn't have as much resource in terms of interaction design, specifically AR, VR design. So looking back, if I had gone to NYU or CMU or other program, maybe I would have more resource in terms of kind of exploring immersive or new type of technology design. But then I think on the other side, the GSD, they have a strong focus on looking at the literature, kind of looking at the design history, and they are very of course, they had a strong background in architecture, so that inspired me to think about space, think about the concept of scale, and how human interact with the space, and from a different scale. So that was kind of an inspiring aspect of going to GSD, but not too many positive things to say about the GSD. I was able to gather some resources from the MIT Media Lab, so that kind of made up for it. And then after graduation, I found a job at MasterCard New York. Surprisingly, MasterCard was doing some interesting projects in different areas. They have 5 labs across the globe. The one in Dublin is focusing on AI, so it's kind of their tech center in Europe. And they are doing some AI and quantum computing stuff. And the one specifically in New York is focusing on new consumer experience design, because we had a lot of consumer brand partners that we can collaborate with. So I'm leading the new interface group in their New York labs. And then what I do is actually pretty interesting, like some VR immersive shopping experience design. Let's see if we can find an image. So at MasterCard, this one is the virtual unattended store. So during the pandemic, I proposed this concept of, people can shop on their desktop while using their phone as a controller. So they basically navigate the 360 store, and then it's both shopping and entertainment. So it was inspired by a project at Google where they kind of used the phone to control the laptop gaming experience. So that one was carried on a lot of MasterCard experience centers across the globe, where it's both marketing and a type of consumer experience, because when the customer go through this virtual unattended store, they would also learn about MasterCard's solution about payment and customer digital identity. So it's both like marketing the brand of MasterCard, but also empowering people to have a more entertaining shopping experience. And then some other cool project involves like AR poster to promote MasterCard's blockchain, and then a VR payment demo where people can use their gesture to do payment in a more entertaining but also safer way, because gestures like in 3D is more difficult to forge. And then, so long story short, I had 2.5 years at MasterCard where I was able to experiment with AR, VR technologies, but another part of my job there is to support their prototyping for social impact-driven projects. So sometimes it's about, how do we use new type of shopping experience to encourage people to shop at more environmentally aware merchants' place, and then allow people to convert their shopping behavior into green points and then plant trees on the planet, something like that. So it's a pretty balanced experience. For people that are trying to look for jobs, I would say some jobs like that are pretty fulfilling for me. At least I was able to do something that has impact both in the commercial world and in the social aspect, but also play with new technologies. So that was my experience with MasterCard Labs. And then currently I'm with Amazon. Our team used to be called Visual Search and Augmented Reality, but now it's more focusing on AI and conversational shopping now. If you happen to be some of the pilot users, you'll be able to see there is a new feature on the Amazon app called Rufus AI Shopping. So basically, if you open the app and then you can ask the app a question, instead of getting a direct search result, the app will give you a more conversational experience, and you can kind of have this ongoing conversation with the Amazon app, and then it will give you a bunch of suggestions about the items that you should buy, but you can keep asking questions. And then I think Amazon is trying to reinvent itself. Instead of being the place where people kind of already know what they want to buy and they just go on Amazon and buy the stuff, they want the customer to see Amazon more as an inspiring place where they can find inspirations and then kind of have a more immersive and engaging experience on. So that's what I do right now. But apart from that, I think on the side, I'm trying to create more digital and physical art project just to kind of reconnect the dot with where I started. So along this journey, I want to focus on a couple projects for today, and the theme of today's talk would be both digital and physical, and also you would see kind of a thread that contains both design and research in these projects. So we'll cover 3 projects today. The first one, Love Cassette, and some of you guys are attracted to this talk because of this picture. So I will cover a lot about how this project came into being and the things that I considered when I designed this. And then Heat Chair, this is something that I designed during the GSD 2 years. And then a couple of XR projects also engendered during the GSD years. So first one, the Love Cassette project, it came into being at the end of 2015. So I had a friend who is actually, a famous writer in China. Maybe some of you know, his name is Han Han, and a famous writer, director, and also a car racer, right? His most recent identity is car racer. So he had this brand called One, where it's like a cultural brand. They sell everything, like from books to pop culture artifacts, and they even have like a coffee shop. So under this brand, they also have an app where people can find articles and interesting poems on the app. So it's kind of a cultural brand for for people that are maybe 10 to 15. So back then, Han Han had this offline store in a big shopping mall, but then he had everything together except there is like a triangle space inside the store. They are supposed to put something there, but they didn't know what to put. And then he had a bunch of requirements. He wanted something that can express the theme of love, but at the same time, because this space is like a triangle space, it's really hard to put anything there. And then they also wanted something that can kind of encourage people to spend more time in the store and attract people offline into the space. And they want this thing to have some personalized interaction, which means every person that interacts with it should get some different feedback, unique to their identity. And they also want this interaction to generate a possibility for online communication, meaning that after you interact with this machine, you could be able to share something online. Because even back then, people are talking about, is this thing Instagrammable, and can you like share it on social media, which is a very big concern for these clients. And also they want this machine to not only attract people, but lead to direct business sales. It's not enough where we attract people in the store and they buy certain stuff from the store. They want this machine to directly generate sales by itself, which is pretty hard to do. And lastly, because of this cassette with this demographic, so its appearance is a little bit more girly and have a macaron kind of color palette. So I proposed a lot of ideas about love and about encouraging people to express love. But because of the site restriction, it was situated in a big shopping mall, and the lighting condition doesn't allow things that uses projection. Because in order to use projection, I need darker space, but they have to use commercial lighting and everything. And also, we have a very, very tight budget. Can you believe that this whole thing was under a budget of $2,000? So yeah, $2,000 and under 1 month. So it was almost something impossible, but we made it. So long story short, this machine works like this. When people walk towards this huge cassette, it already kind of senses the coming of the person, and some of the light will start lighting up as a form of greeting. And then the customer can press this button in the middle of the cassette to start recording. And we are sponsored by Skull Candy, so they put on a Skull Candy headphone and start recording their love message. And side story, when I was prototyping this experience, I should, all right, let me finish this flow and then tell you the side story. So they press the button in the middle of the disc to start recording, and then in the headset they will hear the love message and play once. And then if they think it's what they want to express, they can press the button again to finish the recording. And in under 2 or 3 seconds, there will be a sound wave postcard kind of slipping through this exit, and the customer will be able to see their customized sound wave on the postcard, and there is a QR code on the upper right corner. They can scan the QR code, and it takes them to an HTML5 page where they can hear their love message again and send it to their friends, or they can scroll down to see more information about the event. And then the customer can buy their customized sound wave necklace out of this interaction as a souvenir. So what I've learned is that people have a higher tendency to purchase this necklace after they had this personalized interaction with the machine, because it's not only an off-the-shelf gift, it's more of a memory that they're trying to keep. And then what's interesting is, in order to test how these sound waves would look like, I need to say like all kinds of love messages to the machine myself to see like how these sound waves would look like, and then what's the optimal length for the love message. Initially, I thought maybe 15 seconds would be a good time, like maybe people have a lot to say. And after all this testing, I found out that actually 5 seconds is enough. Like people can say a lot of things in 5 seconds. So 5 seconds was set to be the time. But I regretted it because I had a crush that came to this cassette that day, and he recorded something for me, which is like only 5 seconds. So I was like, oh no, I shouldn't. But anyways, it was said to be 5 seconds, and then after all this testing, can anyone guess why these bars are said to be bars instead of a continuous sound wave? Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that the necklace would be made on the spot, and you have like different beads of different length.
Genius. Yes, yeah. That's the reason. Because initially we made in the very first version, these bars are continuous. And then we were thinking, because my boss also had a 3D printing business, we're like, oh, maybe we can 3D print this sound wave necklace on the spot. But it turns out that it takes 1 hour or 2 hours to print that, and people don't have the patience. So eventually, let me see if I have the pictures here. Yeah, eventually we just bought these ready-made plates from AliExpress and then assembled them on the spot, because we did this kind of treatment to the sound wave. So that was actually a business choice. So essentially, this thing became an entire business loop. When we post this kind of advertisement on social media, it generates a lot of trends, and people come to the store to play with this interactive installation. So it made the store really popular in that mall. So it was situated in a very bad spot, but it turns out to be the most popular store in the entire shopping mall. And then people spend time and play with this installation. They also shop in the store, so it generates more sales for the store. And they also, like after they interact with the machine, they share this sound wave to their friends, which became like a secondary communication. And their friends came to the store again to interact with it, and then kind of it just leads to this ongoing business loop that really generates a lot of revenue for the store. But what's interesting is, out of this cassette itself, remember my friend had this request that he needs this machine to generate revenue by itself. So we sold a lot of sound wave necklaces, and according to the data, because every person that plays with this machine, we need to send the sound wave to the cloud and put it on the postcard. So we literally have the data about how many people interact with it every day, and how much of that was turned into the necklace purchase. And I think, to the best of my memory, it's probably 15%, which is a really high percentage. And these necklaces, they don't really cost a lot to make. So this became a really good business model in the machine itself. And nowadays you can see a lot of interactive installations, but I would say most of them, they do kind of have this functionality of attracting people to play with it, and then create this unique memory, and then they may develop a certain connection with the brand, but not a lot of them like leads to sales by themselves. So a lot of artists, if they create something as a commission for a brand, it's seen as more of a long-term investment by the brand. Like, hey, we want to create this art to improve our brand image and allow people to have some more holistic perception of our brand, but it's not leading to sales by itself. And in times like this, where the economy is shrinking, not a lot of brands are willing to invest in that. So I would say, when as a designer, or artists, when we're designing these kind of interactive installations, it's interesting if we could think about profit from a designer perspective. And like a lot of designers or artists, they don't want to talk about profit or creating art that can lead to sales or profit. But I think it's something that we need to think about and we need to integrate into the whole design system. So this entire design experience also taught me, I think, more than what my 4-year college education has taught me. Like how do I integrate business with technology, with design, and then there's also the client and the user side. Sometimes the client, meaning the brand or the shop, what they want is not necessarily the same with what the user wants. So I kind of have to think about what the client wants, but also advocate for what the user needs. And then, offline and online, this has always been an aspect of the things I design. So I really kind of see this as the start of my design career. And also when I showcase this project to different people, people always come up with some perspective that I didn't think of myself. Like for instance, a lot of my friends with universal design or accessibility background, they would look at this case as a good example of how you can design some new technology interface that are actually very accessible and usable to people that have no technology background. So this cassette was placed in a shopping mall inside a store. Initially, we wanted to put some volunteers by the cassette to kind of guide people how to use it, but then it was too costly. So in the second version, I kind of have to make some updates to this design to make it self-explanatory enough so that we don't have to have any people by the side. Anyone that comes to it will intuitively know how they should play with it. But it's not easy to do for something that people has never seen. So I think what we did is we actually hired some actors and actresses to play with the machine, and then we basically directed a short film, and then we just keep looping this film on a big TV alongside this cassette. And then also there are some posters and guidances and things that make people understand how they can use it. But most importantly, I think even at the start of this project, I had this mindset of I have to make this thing self-explanatory enough. And even when I was choosing this image of the cassette, it's already giving people the idea that maybe it's related to sound, or maybe they can press the button in the middle of the disc to do something. So all of the design choices were made deliberately to guide people, to provide the affordances, so they kind of know how they should play with this thing that they've never seen before. And then, of course, safety. Safety is really important. I proposed a lot of ideas about fires in the shopping mall, and they were like, no, we can't do fires. We have to be mindful about safety. So this huge cassette, I engineered it myself. I created the wires and all the the electricity stuff. Eventually, I had to downgrade everything to 12 volts. So even little babies, if they touch any button by accident, they wouldn't have any accident. And yeah, so hardware, software, and then yes, the learnings. I think coming away from this project, I realized I can create something original, never existed before, and that gives me a lot of satisfaction. At the same time, I realized, something that combines digital and physical, that has a hands-on side, is more interesting for me. The MIT school's motto is thinking with hands, right? I think when we're, as designers, we kind of, especially UX designers or digital designers, there is a beauty in thinking with your hand, in creating things with your hand, making prototypes, but that's to a large extent lost when we're just doing purely digital design. So I think this project reminded me of the beauty of thinking with your hands. And then in terms of design method, I think what works for me is learning by making, and then trying to create prototypes as fast as I can, and identify the design choices from the large sea of prototypes. And then I also, a lot of people see these constraints as limitations in terms of design, but I think a lot of times constraints are very helpful. Like when I was starting this project, my friend gave me a bunch of design requests that I think is impossible to fulfill. Constraints, they helped me minimize the choices and came to something that I'm really happy with. So, and then eventually, in terms of business model, I should write a paper about this, but I happened to discover a paper that talks about the same thing. So I think there are some researchers who researched museum experiences, and they discovered that if you install some personalized interactive experience in a museum, people are more willing to purchase something that is related to that interactive experience out of that interaction. So I guess people do like emotional shopping when they get moved or touched by a certain experience, especially something that's personalized, and they generate something that is related to their experience. They are more willing to spend on it. Yeah, so this is the Love Cassette project. I wanted to share like some side stories about it. So initially, when I designed this, in my mind, I thought the people that would be interested to play with it would be maybe teenagers or people that are more open to new stuff. But eventually, when I was observing the audiences during the weekends, I found like a lot of middle-aged people or even old people, they are also attracted by the machine, and then they come to, maybe some of them, they are daunted at first by the appearance of it, but after they watch the video and then they decide to give it a try, and after they see the result, a lot of these people, they would purchase the necklace as a gift for their friends or for their kids or even for their grandchildren. So I think it also made me question my initial hypothesis about what my user would be. Actually, I don't really know who my end user would be, and so from the very start of the project, when especially like in the future, if I design certain new technology project, I should clear my own hypothesis about who would be the end users who would come to play with this. So, next project, heat chair. Anyone has any question, like burning question about Love Cassette before I go on?
Yeah, no, I was really curious to know for your prototyping process. For your first iteration of the launch, did you guys do like a scale model? Did you guys do the full thing? How did you? Yeah, I'm very curious to know how that process went.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of working with your friend. So my friend literally told me, so we only have a month, and that includes the initial briefing stage. So like under a month, I think we decided on the idea in probably 3 or 4 days. So I presented all these concepts, and they're like, okay, we like the cassette. So now we only have like 25 days left. So there's no way that we can do any type of real prototype. But then my friend told me like, hey, we just place the cassette in this shop, and if it doesn't work out, we just remove it. So I think we did the quote-unquote real prototyping or user testing with the real customers.
Oh, okay, cool, nice.
Yeah, and then after that, it went on like a national tour in a lot of cities, and with every city, we basically made some updates.
Oh, cool, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I think if anyone is like willing to try something new, maybe find a client that you know well. Yeah, and okay, heat chair. This one is a project that I collaborated with architect and robotic engineer Salaiman Alokman. He's a Kuwait architect who went to AAA and also the GSD, so he's like really good with parametric design. So this project is Love Cassette project is something that you visit offline and turn the offline experience into something online, and then going back to offline. So it's like offline to online. But this thing, it's more like turning something digital in its nature into physical. So I'll explain why I said that in a moment. So this chair is made from one continuous sheet of material, which is your pillow filler material, so polyester. Someone asked me in my previous talk, like, is this safe? Actually, maybe, but it's not that safe after heating. And I'll talk about the heating part later. So I was inspired by a Japanese designer's project, baked chair. So the Japanese designer, he literally just baked this entire chunk of polyester in an oven, and it became like a hard chair, a hardened chair. And back then I was a design student, and I was thinking, like, is this design? Because when I saw the chair, I was trying to see kind of a design process, but the entire thing I saw is he kind of cut the material and put it in the oven, and it came out as a big hard chair. And I was like, is this design? So this question always stayed in my mind, like, what is design? Like, if I just choose a piece of material and then did something to it and it came out, is this process considered design, or do I have to do something more sophisticated or more deliberate to make it some type of design? So then, with this question, I started doing experiment with the material, because I think one thing at least was not answered in that project by the Japanese designer is he only like baked it in a certain temperature. I wanted to know how this material would behave if I bake it in different temperatures, or if I give it a different type of treatment. For instance, if I apply some force to it while I'm heating it. So a lot of questions I had for the material part. So I was doing like a lot of experiments with the material, like heating it with the heat gun in different controlled temperatures, and then also like applying force to it. So I saw some exciting results. For instance, some really continuous patterns. So when something looks controllable, that becomes interesting, because in the digital world, everything should be controllable, right? If you give it a certain input, it generates a certain output, and everything can be categorized into a, input to the left and output to the right. So when I see something like this, I realized, oh, maybe this is some programmable material, because I can, make it do a certain thing if I give it a certain continuous input. And then so I did a lot of experiments with the material, and also eventually we used a scientific method called, what's the method? Quantified experiment design, or experiment design, maybe. It's kind of a scientific method where you control the experiment and then, generate a certain result, and out of that you can say with confidence that, hey, we made the material behave a certain way if we give it a certain input. So if you look at the left, there is something pretty consistent here, right? So if I do a certain treatment with a different temperature to the material, it generally would generate a certain predictable outcome. So that's interesting. And then we borrowed some lab equipment from MIT to do all these testings to the generated samples. We wanted to see, like, if I apply a certain temperature to the sample material, would it become hard enough to support a human being? And the result is really exciting, because it is kind of a continuous curve. If I so basically, if I heat the polyester material, the higher the temperature is, the stronger the material becomes, to some extent. And then there's also some unpredictabilities, which is really beautiful, because the thing with the analog world is that it is not 100% input and output. There's always some noise and always some unpredictabilities, which we actually try to incorporate as an advantage rather than disadvantage in the chair project, and you will see that later. So after all these experiments, we basically derived the result, which is if I heat the material to a certain temperature, it will transition from an ultra soft material, the pillow filler, to an ultra hard material. So that means we can create something out of one continuous piece of material into maybe a furniture that has gradient stiffness. Maybe that is ultra soft on one spot and ultra hard on the other. So there is this concept called gradient stiffness material, right? Anyone that's familiarized with computational design or advanced manufacturing or 3D printing would know, like in the 3D printing world, there is this gradient stiffness 3D printing. So you can literally print from one single material. You know that, right? You do 3D printing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me what's gradient. Please. Okay, he's my friend. Just trying to.
Okay. So.
Please.
So 3D print for what?
Gradient stiffness material 3D printing. You should know that.
It
Yeah.
should be like, okay, I just use pretty traditional way to 3D printing, right? It's called,
Okay, I'll say that. Yeah, gradient stiffness 3D printing is basically you print with one material, but then it comes out like maybe one part of the object it's ultra soft, but the other part is ultra hard.
Okay. You just like the new 3D print, like Bamboo Labs can use the different colors material to 3D print, or just this was pretty new for me actually. I want to use a pretty old version 3D printing, like print PLA things. Yeah, and this one is pretty new.
Yeah, I read some papers.
So you just use some different material, right? Oops.
Okay, not everybody's awake, so we can continue.
Confusing.
So basically, after the material experiment, we learned that this material can be programmed from ultra soft to ultra hard just with the temperature treatment. So that's super helpful because we intend to create a chair that has a different stiffness distribution across its body. And the reason for that is actually one of our advisors, she invented this plugin for Grasshopper. So she invented a plugin for Grasshopper for Rhino, which is the 3D modeling software that can do like gradient stiffness optimization, like structural optimization for either. And how do we do that? So we basically controlled a robotic arm to carry this heat gun, and then we programmed the distance of the heat gun. So distance maps to temperature, which maps to the stiffness of the material. So essentially, we just roll this piece using a machinery, which is my hand, and use the robotic arm to carry this heat gun, and the heat gun moves near and far at controlled distances programmed by the robotic arm. So eventually, it generates a distribution of this stiffness across this entire chair, and then that's the result. So this is a chair. It's ultra hard on the outer surface to support the human being, but then it's ultra soft on the top, so that you can feel like it's really soft, but then it can sustain a lot of weight. And then in order to see whether we've achieved the desired result of material distribution or not, we actually did a 3D scan of the chair. So as you can see, the parts that are darker means it's the material is denser, right? And the parts that are lighter means it's softer. So essentially, the 3D scan result revealed that we achieved the desired material distribution as we wanted. So yeah, this project it's like really complex. On my website, like it's I think I spent 2 days assembling everything, like to document this project and put everything on the website, because it is a very intense project in a sense that it consists of 3 systems: the material system, the fabrication system, and the computation system. We designed the algorithm to program the robotic arm, and then we also designed the algorithm to do the structural optimization for the chair, and and also the optimization is corresponding to a human ergonomics, because based on your body shape and based on your posture, the way you want to sit, it basically generates a different distribution, and that will lead to a different way of moving the robot. And also the fabrication, how do we program the robotic arm, and how do we create the entire machinery for this rolling and heating, and eventually, everything results from the materials experiment. So it's kind of an integrative system that combines the material knowledge with the fabrication system with the computation. So it's pretty cool. And then eventually, one thing I forgot to say is actually how it turns from single sheet to a continuous body of the chair is because we discovered if we can apply some force when heating two layers, they literally bond and become one continuous material. So that's also pretty cool. Like eventually, we transformed these single sheets into one continuous rolled chair. Yeah, but the chair it no longer exists. I stored it in the lab at Harvard, and they threw it away. Yeah, not covered. We'll cut this part off. And some curators and museums, they wanted to collect this piece, but because I don't have the piece anymore, and then I was so dumb. I told them like, hey, I lost the piece, and they're like, okay, never mind. And I can literally recreate a new piece. Like nobody knows that. So I'm thinking like this year I will recreate the piece, just using some facilities maybe in nearby community colleges, and then I can reach back to these old contacts. And so material as an interface. I think this whole project, I think the theme of it is how do I use material as an interface to bridge the digital with the physical, right? Because in this chair, everything kind of starts from, I wouldn't say it entirely starts from the digital. I did start the project with experimenting with the material, so it's kind of a physical interface. But all the material experiment was turned into numbers, right? I turned this experiment into the input and output numbers, like the temperatures, the stiffness, everything become digitized. And then it became an algorithm where I can program the robot, and eventually these digits and algorithms were turned into the physical materialized form again. So it's really a beautiful back and forth between digital and physical. So my personal takeaway is, in the future, if I want to continue these kind of projects, I would again start from observing the material behavior. Start with playing with the material in any way you want, and maybe you will discover some interesting patterns of how the material will behave, and then you can try to design something out of that. So it's more of a spontaneous discovery kind of design process. And I think this project also is a combination of design and research, because I'm researching the material on the one side and then using my first-hand learnings from the research to do the design. So it's interesting play between design and research. Okay, we still have a lot of time, so I can talk about my XR project. Any questions before?
Yeah, so I heard you say about your work to collaborate with architecture design.
Oh.
So I was an architecture designer before, so I'm very curious that how you collaborate with him or her, and if you get any inspiration or motivation from your partner, something like that.
Yeah, this project is actually, except the project I collaborated with you, it's the only project that I actually collaborated with another person. So I was always doing things single-handedly, but then this project, because I need to program the robotic arm, I don't know how to program the robotic arm, and he is really good at robotics because he was interning at the robotic lab at Harvard. So I was like, hey, can you program the robot? And he's like, you seem to be really interested in this pillow material, so how about you do the material part? So I think we had good division of labor. And But for the algorithm side, the two of us worked on it together. So I think finding someone with a skill set that you don't have is really important.
Yeah.
But we have the same aesthetics and we have the same design philosophy. So we didn't really collide on that.
I'm also curious, like this fabric, how do you find this material? Like specific, like on my background, there are so many different, this thing.
Yeah.
So how do you find this specific, choose that one? Like what is process you find out?
When did you come to talk? Because I mentioned this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, just playing on you. So I was inspired by the Japanese designer's bake chair. So I know like he took this soft material and I was like, hey, what's that material? And I thought maybe it's pillow filler. I was kind of a detective trying to solve how he came up with that design. So I tried a couple soft materials and the pillow filler actually turned out to be something that has that behavior.
Yeah, that's cool.
And you also had a question?
I'm wondering if you got any help from Media Lab when you're doing
Oh, Media Lab? No. Yeah, it's really hard to get any resources there. I was doing another project that I don't think I will cover today, but it's like a chair that transforms itself between two states. So literally, like this chair will have a relaxed state when you're relaxing, and then it senses you're getting to a work mode, and the chair will transform itself from a really like flamboyant, relaxed state to a very rigid work state. So this chair, I was planning to fabricate it, actually make this chair, and using these gradient materials that I saw like the self-assembly lab at MIT. They had that material and they made a lot of prototypes using the material, but I reached out and they were not willing to lend me the material. So it's hard to get any resources there. I would say if anyone wants to get resources there, maybe join their research project and just be part of their community would help. Okay, so my XR project. This one was done in 2018. We were using a Magic Leap, AR glass back then. It was basically an experience that augments the museum paintings with contextual information and things that we can find either online or offline. So imagine that you walk towards an art piece in a museum. The sad thing about that is actually the art piece is about a person or some historical context, but there's not enough space to give you all the context. And we were told that at the Harvard Art Museum they have a lot of collections that could only sit in the basement because there's not enough space to display them. So maybe only 1/5 of all these archivals were displayed for the actual visitors. So we need to bring out all these hidden archival materials, either in their storage or online. So basically everything that's related to the piece. We wanted to surround the piece with all these contextual materials. And really interestingly, I was talking to another artist the other day about this project and he recognized the painting. So obviously the painting is not that anonymous. What's going on? Anyways, so this painting is actually something we found from the Boston Fine Art Museum. It was painted by the famous Bostonian painter John Sargent. And this woman, she is a no-name model for the painting. So literally people know nothing about her. And that's something that we also wanted to change because there are a lot of hidden figures in these paintings. And we wanted to give a story to these people and uncover their hidden histories, especially these female figures. And after some digging, we learned that actually this woman, there are some historical materials about her. Like she is a friend of the famous writer Helen Keller. Like she wrote a lot of letters to Helen Keller. And we were able to find these letters from all these different museums spread out across the country. And we were able to from reading her letters, we knew the stories about this woman. Like she went to the 1913 Chicago Expo, she saw a lot of new stuff, and she was unsatisfied with her marriage, and then a lot of stuff about this woman. So even though she's an unknown figure in history, but obviously there is a lot to be learned about her. And even most surprisingly, her dress, like the dress she wore for this painting, you can find it in a museum in Boston. Like people actually store this dress, but it's so sad that all these things that are related to each other, like the letters, the dress, they are here and there, spread across the country. They should be connected in a certain way, surrounding this piece and this woman. And so we were basically the team of 5 people. We uncovered all these historical contexts surrounding this art piece, and including, we learned that the woman was really impressed by the Chicago Expo in 1913, and we were able to find some pictures from the Chicago Expo. So everything was uncovered and brought together in this piece. So how do you interact with it? The demo is on my website, but basically this piece is called Demystified. The intention is to allow people to demystify an art piece using their interaction. So basically, you wear the Magic Leap AR glass and you walk towards the painting, and you see a lot of mists around the painting. So literally, you clear all these mists using your hand to get closer to this woman in the painting. But as you clear the mist, you will trigger all sorts of historical artifacts, like like these letters or her dress. And her dress is also kind of a proof of the oppression she was under, because when she posed for this picture, she was actually 4 or 5 months pregnant, but like she was forced to wear this corset and very tight dress just to look a certain way. So all these things are very helpful for us to understand the cultural background where this art was created. And the beauty with these media like AR and VR is it has no restriction. Like we can literally, especially now, like with the Apple Vision Pro, you can switch between augmented reality and virtual reality, right? So we can basically, when you walk towards the painting, you are more aware of the physical world. But as you clear the mist and trigger all this historical context, you can transition into a new world, which is a virtual world. Like we literally transitioned people or teleported people into the 1913 Chicago Expo world with all these old pictures, and it's kind of bringing you from physical to the digital. Yeah, someone has a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So the first project you did was like business. It's to generate revenue. So for this project, is it like a grant by the museum to do it?
So this project itself, it started as a hackathon project at the Hacking XR at MIT Media Lab. But then later I developed it further, and this year potentially we will not exactly the same thing, but similar idea. We will collaborate with City of Santa Monica to do some reinvigoration to their museums and art galleries.
Okay.
So you can also see like something like this. It takes so this project was born 2018, 2019, but now it's almost 5 years later, and some government agencies were interested in bringing this idea further. So potentially this year we will have some funding. Yeah.
Thank you.
So this project, and then another project, House Zero Holo. It's about augmenting the building environment with real-time data. Okay, so anyone who's familiar with the Harvard Center for Green Buildings and Cities, Harvard CGBC, they had this House Zero project where it's allegedly the most energy-saving house in the world. So they were saying like they don't use any artificial sources of energy, like no electricity or no anything. It's like solely solar powered and use passive energy to achieve the heating and circulation of the house. So it's kind of an architectural and ESG design case. But then at the same time, because all of the researchers, I think they wanted to have a more intuitive way to understand the building data, like how does the airflow go in each room and how the design of the house. Maybe they wanted to see whether the design is successful enough, like whether the airflow is really doing the job as they claim. So they wanted to first gather the data about the entire building, and then they wanted to augment the data in the building, which is actually the way it should be, right? Like when we see those building temperature, building airflow, it makes more sense to see the airflow literally being displayed in the room, in the corner where it should be displayed. I think that's also the essence of spatial design, where information should, be displayed in a way that makes sense and create more affordance for people to relate to. So literally, we installed a lot of sensors and Arduino and stuff to collect the data from the building. So like turning the physical side to digital, and then all this data, the weather, the airflow, the building infrastructure data, including how the heat and the water pipe, all these data, like electricity data, everything, were integrated into the digital portal, and then we basically augment them in the glass, in the HoloLens glass. So when any visitor or the building manager or these researchers, when they enter the building, they can wear the HoloLens and see through the building. Like they can see the airflow, they can see how the pipes are running, like hot water, cold water, and they can see the real-time airflow. So this project is like an attempt to bring the building data into 3D space and kind of do a spatialized visualization of data. And the attempt is, I think they had the hope that these researchers would come up with better ideas if they see the data in 3D space. Maybe they can come up with some associations they didn't formally think of, and then they will maybe spot some connections between the data and the space. So it's also for research purposes. So another project that I did in the XR space is called Dream by Day. It's also on my website. So the idea of this project is I'm trying to use a way of tangible input for people to alter their virtual experience. So when you're in the virtual world, is there anything that can make you feel like the physical world you're placed in is connected with the virtual experience? So that's my research question. So the way I did it is I picked this dream ball, which is actually something from Boston. So back then we didn't have really good sensing technology, so I was like attaching a Vive tracker to this dream ball and using that to track the location and acceleration of the ball. So I can use all this data to alter the human experience in VR. Oh, feel free to sit here.
All right, yeah. I'll just sit right here.
Yeah, so how this experience plays is basically I put on the VR headset and then I hold this dream ball in my hand and it kind of teleports me to this dream world, which is whatever scene is inside the ball. And then the player can start playing with this ball in their hand, which is a glass ball. They can touch the ball, they can blow air into the ball, and they can hold it with 2 hands. So all these different forms of interaction would trigger changes in the story and the scene. So long story short, actually the interesting part about this project is I started this project as a way to explore how tangible interaction can change virtual experience and can kind of enhance or diminish people's sense of presence or immersion in the virtual world. But it turns out the most challenging part and most interesting part in designing this project is the music design. So I gave a talk at the Berklee College of Music a while ago talking about this project, and because this project was supposed to be a self-guided experience. So people would just, hold the ball in their hand, and even though I have certain directions in the experience, but people would just play with the ball in whatever way they want. So the real challenge is, how do we make sure, like, if someone just holds the ball and just do whatever they want with the ball, how do we make sure the experience still is structured or still makes sense from an aesthetic perspective? Because the way I designed it is, if they touch the ball, they would hear sound with every touch. And if they blow air onto the ball, they would hear a different type of music. And if they hold it with both hands, of course they would hear another type of music. But with the touching part, it's really difficult because people are gonna just touch the ball fanatically, and they will just, they will just totally disregard all the guidances. And how do I make sure the entire experience, the interaction inside the virtual world and the sound wouldn't sound crazy if people just start, nudging the ball and do crazy stuff. So I borrowed some inspiration from the game Monument Valley, because Monument Valley also faced the same problem. Every interaction, like back and forth when they pick up something, every interaction triggers a sound or kind of a note of music. But people are not gonna act according to the guidance. So they also solved it beautifully with their music design. They designed it in a way that no matter how you just go through the experience, it will always sound really nice. So I would say the biggest challenge in this project is the sound design. But anyways, I created a very dreamlike world where people can play with when they play with the ball in these suggested ways. So before I talk about the takeaways, any questions? Questions?
I'm more curious. So it's more like not related to this, but I feel like the VR AR is more and more like will popular in the future. I am curious. Do you have some like the potential ideas, like how we can like leverage like the AI or the space design in the like AR if we like take some hands-on. So I went to the Apple store before, so I tried their like Apple what is that?
Vision Pro.
The Vision Pro. So I think the real project is very limited. So I think the only thing related to spatial design or the this kind of design is only like you can see the 3D like the landscape, and that's all. So do you have some like motivational ideas like what kind of project in the future we can have like in the real production?
But didn't you see like people are already browsing houses on Zillow like in the Vision Pro?
Yeah.
Without going to actual house touring?
Yeah. But I think your project is more like related to you touch something, and I think that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that project is more of a personal passion project. It's like my passion has always been storytelling, like telling stories for different people, or even for spaces. But storytelling in VR, I'm more interested in like different ways to engage people. Like tangible input is something that I wanted to try and continue trying in XR, because I don't think a future where we're completely immersed in the headset is a good future. Maybe I was a believer of the movie Ready Player One. Like if everyone's immersed in their headset, that's not the kind of future I want. So I would use my design as a way to bring people back to the reality a little bit. Yeah, so my take on the physical future, which is the theme of today's talk, is, of course, when we're designing experiences, if you go on the market to look for a design job, they wouldn't put it in the requirements saying like, hey, we need designers that can bridge the digital with the physical, unless it's kind of a specific job, like robotic experience designer or certain more specific design job. But I think it should be written in the design school curriculum. Like, how can we still divide the design education in all these arbitrary terms like, oh, you are a product designer, I'm a graphic designer, it doesn't really make sense. I'm seeing, a lot of architects transitioning into UX designers, transitioning into a different job title, but I think ultimately it's all about designing experiences, right? The experiences of a space, of an installation. I don't think we need to create these arbitrary boundaries between either these design disciplines or digital and physical, because they are inseparable. Like all of these projects, you can see there's always a digital side and a physical side. And multi-senses is also something I'm interested in, like the sound project, the Love Cassette project. Of course, it's about sound, but there's also a tactile part to it. There's also a visual part. All of these cues, they give people affordances when they engage with your design. So I think multi-senses and blending these aspects is something I'm really interested in. And then personalizable experience. Of course, every human being wants to be seen. I think that's a core human need. It even in consumer experiences, people wanting to feel like they are treated not as a consumer but as someone special. So I have an example that yes. So this one is from the famous design company Frog, right? Frog did this with the Disney magic bands. So Frog basically designed this Disney magic bands for Disney, where every child who visits the park, they would basically receive personalized greeting, because actually the band has their personal information in it. So it knows their birthday, it knows their name. So when the princess says like, hey Michael, or hey Judy, the child would really feel this moment of wowness. And this comes from personalization, because if it just said, hey, I don't think the child would have any reaction, because when the princess calls out their name, the child feels, oh, they're being seen, and actually the princess knows me. So something as simple as FRID technology can trigger this kind of magic effect, as long as it's being mindfully designed. So that's something I also wanted to bring to the experience that I designed, always having a personalized aspect to it. With the Love Cassette project, on the Soundwave postcard, the Soundwave is unique to each individual. They see it as an evidence of, themselves being seen and their experience being memorized. And then with the current AI technology, it becomes more doable to anticipate the needs of human beings. I wrote an article about anticipatory design a while ago, but it's all about using technology to deduct what this person wants to do at a given space and time. So with the current technology, it's really not that hard to guess what you are here for. Like they know, like, you registered for this event, they know your background and maybe your gender and your demographics. So I think our technology has a very good chance of guessing what you want to do at any given moment of time. So with that knowledge, it can be spooky, but if we design something a little bit more humanized and make people feel like they're seeing and create some personalized experience, that would be technology used in the right way. And then environment. From the environment level, a lot of materials can be programmed, and with the current advanced manufacturing technologies, I think our environment can become responsive to the human being with a lot of input and output and Arduinos and stuff. So I would advocate for a future that there's no limit for the bits and atoms. Of course, this is taken from the Tangible Media Lab led by Hiroshi Ishii. I don't know if anyone who is familiarized with their work, the Tangible Media Group. Yeah, maybe, but I see some pain point in the growth of their lab. Even though they had a couple PhDs and who went on to teach at different universities, but there is kind of an innate limitation to things that are tangible. There's a cost to manufacturing these pieces, and every time they create a piece, it's like really hard to scale. So even though he's seen as the pioneer of the tangible or physical computing space, but he and his lab himself are facing a lot of limitations of growth. Because we have to admit that the current trend of the world is going digital, right? Everything's going digital. Everybody's spending more time on their digital world rather than recognizing their physical being. So I think it's kind of a little bit going against the trend to advocate for something physical, to kind of create this tangible media and tangible interaction thing. But it's important to have some group of people that go against the trend, because we always need balance. And I'm not like completely belong to their tribe. I don't do purely physical stuff either, because I do recognize there is an importance of, when I design things, I want it to be scalable. Even with the Love Cassette, like many people think it's not scalable, but actually it is to some extent, because only the like if you think about it as a system, I don't really restrict the cassette to the form of the cassette. I actually customize it for some other brands with like really more speaker or other forms. So as a system, it is scalable to some extent. So going back to the topic, Hiroshi Ishii and his lab, they are a strong believer of this no boundary kind of design future where the bits and the atoms are together, and hopefully we will see that in, I think, maybe 50 years. And there are some artists and designers who are actually practicing that in their art and design. So if anyone knows this artist Laurie Anderson, who is the wife of the famous singer Lou Reed. So Laurie Anderson had the VR experience Chalk Room, which I visited at Moss Mocha, maybe 2019. And this whole experience is like someone traveling in the VR world, of this dreamlike VR world of Chalk Room and all these very dreamy experiences. But they designed it in a way that the physical environment also maps the virtual experience. So when you enter the museum, it's not only this virtual experience that's talking about the story. It's actually extended from the virtual to the physical environment. So something similar is this experience, Vestige, where the storyteller tells the story of her husband who passed away due to an accident. But in the installation itself, the environment is also set up with a very vestige-like design. So it's not only vestige in the virtual experience, but also in the physical environment. So I would advocate when we design for experiences, either digital or virtual experience, it needs to have a certain level of consistency from the physical environment all the way to the virtual and to the either desktop or mobile or 2D or 3D, it doesn't matter, but it needs to be consistent. So final case, this one, I really like this case. It was designed by a Chinese parametric designer, Zhang Zhoujie. So I think it's a local government asked him to create a landscape for a city, for kind of a mountain. And then he literally took drones to scan the environment of this mountain. So from the physical to digital. And then they built 3D models in Blender or some 3D software, and they simulated a virtual river on the 3D model of the building. So like, and then after that, they basically put in some parameters to simulate the river and basically deduct from the algorithm if there would be a river, what would it look like on this kind of mountain. So essentially, he fabricated this aluminum river out of the 3D model software and then assembled it on the site. So I think it's really interesting project. It's kind of a beautiful loop from the physical to the digital and then back to the physical, like materializing the site data and a sense of digital materiality. Okay. All right, and then I also wanted to advocate for a future where, when we design for these experiences, we need to enrich and humanize the digital with the physical. Because what's valuable about the physical world or the tangible world is, as human beings, we've lived in this world for, millions of years, and we've gained all these experiences and perspectives about, for instance, this bottle, right? I can touch this bottle and then the shape of it gives me a certain affordance and kind of guides me to use it in a certain way. So all these tangible wisdoms are gained from our experience as mammals, as, human beings to interact with this physical world. And I don't think it's healthy in any way to reduce all these subtleties to only playing on the screen. It's literally, I'm not like a biology expert, but I think maybe from evolutionary perspective, it's something harmful to either our brain or our body to minimize our interaction with the physical world and, just focus on the screen, because we're minimizing our sensory input and output. So my view is we should bring all these years of tangible wisdom and experience into the digital world. If we cannot escape this digital trend, is there a way that we can at least, lessen the harm with adding a little bit physical wisdom? Because this is what makes us human, and yeah. And then I remember my professor Panagiotis used to say, you don't have to increase the digital aspect, because the digital world is addictive. It has a natural tendency to make you addict to it and make you want to spend more time in it, and then to isolate people, because you see a lot of people, they're immersed in their headset and, having one-on-one quality time with their phone all the time. And I would think as designers, we do have a social responsibility to bring people back to the physical world. Rather than, designing more games or online apps that make people spend even more time online. It's kind of a responsibility we have for our species as human beings. And, okay, I think I'm gonna skip this. Okay, last thing, with AIGC, I think there is a lot more we can do with this kind of digital and physical experience. As I shared before, this example is an excellent example of how a simple piece of technology can make someone feel they are being seen, and personalized experience has a lot of magic. Mark Weiser said the most profound technologies are those that disappear, and him said any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So I believe with AIGC, these kind of magic are more manufacturable than before, and there is value in making your experience personalized and making the user feel they're being seen and valued. And this one, there's an experience a while ago where you're just talking with a spiritual NPC in VR, and the NPC is actually generating very personalized response. So this slide was created a couple months ago, but I think everyone here should have experienced some level of AIGC that they're impressed with, right? I was actually asking ChatGPT to compose poems for today's talk, which I wasn't able to print. I asked Chat, actually I can show the poems here. Let's see. Oh, nice. Posters. Yes. Okay, let me just show the poems here. So I asked Google Gemini to compose the first poem, which is like, hey, can you compose a poem that's about, you know, the beauty of the tangible world? And it came up with a poem called, Earth's Embrace. Maybe I should read it. Beneath the sky, a canvas vast, where clouds like brush strokes drift and pass. We tread on earth, a vibrant stage. A million wonders turn the page. Sun dappled leaves, a verdant choir. Wrestle secrets in the rising fire. Pebbles worn smooth by ocean's kiss, hold whispered tales of salty bliss. A spider's web, a jeweled snare, catches morning light, a sparkling prayer. A butterfly on velvet wings, a splash of color joy it brings. Rough horn bark, a timeless hold, whispers stories centuries old. A winding stream, a silver thread, reflects the world where dreams are bred. These tangible gifts within our reach, a symphony for senses to preach. So open wide your heart and eyes, and see the beauty that never dies. Yeah, composed by Google Gemini about the beauty of the tangible world. Isn't that amazing? I also asked it to compose a poem that laments the overuse of technology. And it came up with something called the coded cradle. Okay, I'm gonna recite it too. A world we knew, a tactile grace of paper whispers, ink embrace, now fades to screens, a glowing haze. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more subtle, but a digital dawn in pixelated ways. Our pockets hum with coded might, a map, a bank, a flickering light. Conversations fleeting and fast, in tiny squares, emotions cast. Love's confessions, pixelated sighs, work's demands in digital cries. Memories stored, a silicone shrine, but can a screen replace the touch that's thine? Faces aglow in a phone's pale light, missing the warmth of starlit night. Okay, I don't think it's really good poem, but at least it's a poem and a decent poem. So yeah, I think the creativity of these AIs are amazing, and we can use that to, you know, completely immerse ourselves in the digital world, or we can use that to maybe minimize some work needed to add to the digital and physical duet, as I think it really helps to create the personalized interactions with these AI GCs. It really is a technology that's going to make this kind of personalization much more feasible with this technology. So yeah, I think I'm done with my talk. Any questions?
Yeah, so you talk about physical digital. Wondering your thoughts on Humane Pin and similar products like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mean what?
The Humane AI Pin, the
Uh-huh.
wearable. Yeah, your thoughts on that product and things you would change about that. I mean, it's kind of physical digital without a screen, but also a screen.
I actually haven't really researched this design. I do see like a lot of people talking about it, and I've seen their demos. I would say I'm not a big fan of it. Just like from a user perspective, I feel like this is not something I would buy myself, and I don't find a lot of real application in my life. So just as a consumer, I don't think it's something I would buy.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, for AI, team is that machine is still not, you know, revolution your smartphone. So that's why. Also, when that one just exists, I think earlier this year, someone said, okay, someone will be, okay, how to say, combine with AI and probably will change your smartphone forever. But actually, it's not. So when they have this, it's just a concept, and when they product things, I just watched some video on YouTube. and they just complain about these things. Why it's a not successful design? So I 100% agree with that with you. So yeah, they just give some reason. I probably can just research for that, and yeah, there's still not change, or there's still not find a way to what is the interaction between AI and human. So I think that's a pretty huge challenge for designer now, because we should find that way. Okay, do we only do the chats, or just we talk like to Siri or ChatGPT 4.0? Is that work for us, or is that enough, or what about next level for interaction, with AI? So actually, yeah, there's no answer.
Send him the video.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
Let me just search for that, and I can share that with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually bought that and tried that 2 weeks.
What?
Yeah, and I feel that it's more like engineer solutions because they're trying different with like multi-sensor experience you just mentioned. It's like trying to project. Actually, they're starting from like hand projecting company, and then the AI transcom they turn into AI ping. Yeah. But I still feel like an engineer solution, they're trying out the way of using the palm projecting, and AI talking. But I feel like they're just like bonding a bunch of interaction together and start the solution. But it's first generation. I can see what's next. You see, I'm not selling it. I think they're still trying to selling it like 1 million or something. Yeah.
What? You mean the company?
The company, yeah.
What's your experience as a user? Like, what does it feel like to use this? Is it natural or like feels weird?
Yeah, the connection is so bad because they have a like separate phone numbers. So like when you use your phone, like you cannot like connect this together. There's no IoT kind of like interconnected experience. So they always need to like have a new number. So my one friends call me, I will never get it in my human pin for my phone.
It sounds like it's an engineering failure.
Yeah. So
It's being recorded and gonna put on YouTube. Okay, any other questions?
Yes, I feel like almost all the projects is independent, and I believe there are many challenges you made. So I'm curious, what is the biggest challenge you made and how you overcome it?
That's kind of a very big question, but
You
not
didn't
all.
make challenges on everything.
I think like all these projects, they don't come into fruition in a year, right? It's like from maybe 2015 to 2019, so it's like four years time, or 4 or 5 years. And one thing I did learn is it's worth collaborating with some people. Something that I've changed myself is I try to go from a more like artist kind of mindset to a more creative director slash project manager slash design manager type of person, because it's really very limited amount of things you can do as an individual. Like I'd like to think myself as a versatile creative person, but I'm not the best videographer, I'm not the best music creator. There are a lot of things that would be done in a much more effective way if I just find someone to join the team. But like in the past, I find it to be a personal struggle to convince someone else to join my project, because I always see like this project is my personal passion. It's not that I don't feel comfortable sharing this project with other people or sharing the credit, but I feel like I don't have the kind of the reason to convince another person to sacrifice their time and energy to help me fulfill my own creative dream. So it's like, doesn't make sense to me. But after a couple years of, witnessing other people's collaboration and growing as a person and just being more mature, I think I do see a point of joining another person's project. Like as a designer, if I find someone else's project more interesting, or if I like their leadership, or if they have certain resource that I don't have access to, I would happily join their project. So it's more about learning to deal with your own ego and yeah.